very shortly. But in the meantime, I'll just introduce Yosef. It is a great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Yoseph Haddad. Yoseph Haddad is a Christian Arab Israeli and a fierce defender of and advocate for Israel, traveling the world combating anti-Semitism and anti-Israel bias. During the 2006 Lebanon War, a month before his voluntary service in the IDF was to end, Yosef was sent to the Lebanese border. A rocket, can someone who is unmuted there, please mute? Thank you. So Yosef was sent to the Lebanese border. A rocket fired from Hezbollah hit close to where Yosef was standing. And as a result thereof, Yosef lost his foot. And after several operations, his foot was finally reattached. And a year later, his dream of playing soccer again was realized. After intensive therapy and treatment that he received at Beit Halochem, Sahal's Disabled Veterans Organization, otherwise known as ZDVO. This experience left Yosef with a deep desire to do more for and become increasingly involved with Israel advocacy, telling what he believes to be a side of Israel that many people choose either not to hear or to ignore. Yosef, if you are with us, I'm going to hand over to you. So if you can just unmute yourself and just tell us if you're with us. I'm going to admit Yosef. That is what was restricting us. So Yosef, are you here with us? I've done all the introductions, so it's all up to you now, mate. Yosef, are you there?
I'm there. I'm literally in the Israeli parliament right now, going from a meeting to a meeting, but happy to be with you guys.
Fantastic. So welcome, and over to you.
All right. So first of all, it is an honor to be here and to speak to every one of you. I knew that the original plan was to meeting face to face, but sometimes you plan things, you get something else. But at least now we are together. As I said, I'm not in my office right now. I'm actually in the office of one of the members of the Israeli parliament. I'm in between committees. And actually, I will also share with you why I'm here, because we're speaking about the education that's happening in Israel, and we're speaking specifically about the education that is currently happening in East Jerusalem, which is a very, very complicated area with a lot of high schools that are under the control of the Palestinian Authority, not the Israeli Authority, which we saw that time after time, the curriculum that they're learning is literally for supporting terrorism and incite against the state of Israel. And all this is happening in what we call it the Israeli territory. But I will elaborate on that a little bit more. I do want to introduce myself better for those who don't know my work and don't know me. My name is Yoseph Haddad. I'm an Israeli Arab born in Haifa, which is the largest mixed city in Israel. Lived and grew up in Nazareth, which is the largest Arab city in Israel. And there's always a reason why I mention Nazareth and Haifa, the largest Arab city and the largest mixed city in Israel. And it's because they shaped my personality along with my family and my parents' education. I remember all the time finishing school, going back home, and as fast as possible doing homeworks, because this is the only way I can get out of my room and do what I like. And what I like is playing soccer, football. We call it football. I don't know how you call it there. So I think football as well, but I'll go with what I say, football. So we play football. And because my cousins and my friends were in Haifa, every time I would take a bus from Nazareth to Haifa and play their football. Now, who played in that neighborhood football court? Jews, Muslims, Christians, Druze, literally the tapestry of the Israeli society, because this is Haifa, the largest mixed city. And it was, natural for us. And at that age, when we were 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, we didn't really care about the identity of the person we were playing football with. I didn't think, I'm going to pass the ball to an Arab, or I'm going to pass the ball to a Jew. I just wanted to play football, just like any other friends. And I was very happy to see that we gave each other the feeling of not only, first of all, we are equals, but we're human beings. And that's how we treated it. We didn't care about the religion. We didn't care about the color of your skin. We didn't care about your race. What we wanted is just jump the ball in the air and let us play football together. And this relationship, step by step, evolved to be from just playing football to go out and drink and then go out and eat something and visiting each other's families. And during holidays, for instance, if it was Christmas, then the Muslim and the Druze and the Jews would come to the Christian families and celebrate and honor. If it was Eid al-Adha, then the Jews and the Christian would go to the Druze or the Muslims. And if it was Passover, then the Muslims, the Druze and the Christians would go and have a Passover dinner with our Jewish friends. And this is what was so important, because we did not let anybody feel different. Now, we did not mix the culture and the tradition, and I don't want that, and we didn't want that. But we wanted to get to know each other culture and tradition, because we believe that by knowing each other culture, by knowing each other tradition, it is actually a tool to bridge gaps between all communities. By the way, there's another tool, which is language. That's why I always say, in my mind, every Arab should learn Hebrew in Israel, and every Jewish should learn Arabic in Israel, because it is a tool to bridge gaps. So knowing the tradition, knowing the culture, knowing the language, that would definitely help. Now, I should mention here and be more specific. We need to understand and realize that we're talking about 4 different territories in Israel, okay? So we have the first one, which is Israel, where you have 2 million Arab Israelis like me living equally under the law. And I have the right to vote, and I have the right to get elected. If I want to be the president, I can nominate myself to become a president. Even if I win or not, that's a different idea, but that's a different issue. But I can become a president if I want. So those are the 2 million Arabs. You have 1.6 million Muslims, 145,000 Christians, 140,000 Druze community that they are descent from the Islam, and they are actually go back way to Egypt. And a very fun fact on the Druze community here. Israel was the first country in the world to actually recognize the Druze community as their own. And then followed by Syria and other countries in the world. But Israel was the first one to recognize the Druze community as a Druze and as a community officially. Now, I was saying that knowing each other's traditions and cultures and knowing each other's language, that would definitely help to bridge gaps. And because at that time, all of us, we treated ourselves like this. Now, I'm not, let's say, naive. If you'd ask me even back then in 2002, 2003, if there was racism and there was discrimination, yes, there is discrimination and there is racism. By the way, the racism and the discrimination is not between Arabs and Jews. It's also between Jews and Jews themselves and between Arab and Arabs themselves. And another thing is, I find it highly hypocritical when people, for instance, from the United States or from even Australia or any other part of the world, when they talk about racism and then they just really forget to speak about their own country, because unfortunately, discrimination and racism exist everywhere. We need to fight it. But the thing is, it seems like there's a lot of people are focusing on Israel excessively without even talking about what their own issues and their own problems in their own country. So I knew that those problems exist in Israel, and I knew that those problems exist to the 2 million Arab Israelis and also to the 7 million Jews that lives here. Okay, so the thing is that what do we do about it, and how can we actually change it, or how can we actually fight it? To that I'll answer later once I'm done giving you the territories. So the 2 million Arabs, as I said, living in Israel equally. Now you have one more territory, which is East Jerusalem. That was the committee today about the education over there. You have 250,000 what we call Palestinians. The majority of themselves identify as Palestinians in East Jerusalem, despite the fact that they publicly identify themselves as Palestinian, despite the fact that without the terrorism and without the extremism, many of them would wish to actually go and have an Israeli ID. Now, they are eligible. They're not a citizen of Israel. They have a permanent resident, okay? And they're eligible to actually go to the office in Israel, the Interior Office, Minister of in Israel, and request an ID. Now, if they don't have any background of terrorism, they will get the ID, the Israeli ID, and they will become a resident and will become a full citizen of Israel. The problem is that many of the extremists in East Jerusalem, they are using the method of intimidating and frightening them and literally just threaten them. If you do that, you will be killed. Your family, your friends, your relatives, your wife, it doesn't matter for them. They would do absolutely everything. And because of that status, many of East Jerusalem stays as a permanent residence and not as a full citizens. Of course, anything I'm saying right now, it doesn't mean that the state of Israel is not responsible and have responsibility. Of course, Israel has responsibility. Of course, Israel is not perfect. And of course, Israel can do much better. And of course, Israel, do mistakes. It exists, as I said, in every country. But everybody is speaking about the mistakes of Israel. Everybody is speaking about how Israel and Israel and Israel. Nobody is speaking about the other side. That's why in this lecture, specifically in this talk, you would see me focusing on the other side, because many people are focusing on the other side. Leave the fact that many of them twist the facts and lies, and those who are actually talking to the point, they don't even get the stage, because then you'd realize it's not what the media and the social media wants. But the problem is that when you lie, when you don't identify the problem, you can't actually solve a problem. And that's exactly what's happening in East Jerusalem. Now, the other two territories is in Gaza, which you have 2 million Arab Palestinians living in Gaza under the terrorist organization Hamas. And then you have, according to the Palestinians, about 3.2 million Palestinians living in the West Bank in territory A, B, and C. The majority of the Palestinians, about 95 or 96% of them, living in territory A and B, which controlled by the civil rights of the Palestinian Authority. Meaning, Israel does not control, as they say many times in the news, control 2.2 million Palestinians. No, we're not. In fact, the majority of the Palestinians in the West Bank are controlled by the Palestinian Authority. In territory E, civil and security. In territory B, the Palestinian Authority controls civil, Israel controls the security. And in territory C, Israel controls the civil and the security. But in territory C, only between 3 to 4% of the Palestinians live in that territory. So the absolute majority of the Palestinians live under the Palestinian Authority. Therefore, when I speak about the apartheid lie in about a few minutes, we will realize that it is a myth and it is a lie. And despite, as I said, there are problems both in the West Bank and Gaza and East Jerusalem and inside Israel, it's not even close to being apartheid. And those who are using the myth of the apartheid against Israel, it's because this is the way to get more money. This is the way to promote their own agenda. This is the way to promote their own organization, the BDS organizations, without even a shred of truth. And I always call the BDS organizations, the organization that calls to boycott Israel because it's an apartheid state. I always call them, not only they are anti-Israelis, but they are anti-Palestinians. Because if you remember, I've already said this sentence, I will say it again on them as well. The more you talk about Israel being an apartheid state, the more you lie about that, the more you say something that does not exist, the more you are actually not helping to solve the conflict, the more you push the solution further away, because if you don't recognize what the problem is, you can't solve it. And if you create a problem that does not exist, you're not going to go anywhere. Okay, but I will touch on that even more, just to give you even the specifics of the semantic of how they actually talk about Israel. I just want to go back to the idea after we spoke about the Arabs in the land of Israel and the territories here. I want to tell you about the fact is that when I grew up with friends of Jews and Arabs from all sectors, from all the tapestry of Israel. And because of that, we did not care. And this is how we grew up. And because we grew up like this, we didn't care anything about each other besides being human beings. We felt equal. And because we felt equal, I felt Israeli. And because I felt Israeli, I arrived to the position where when I reached the age of 18, I decided to actually volunteer and serve in the IDF. Now, That is the name, IDF, Israeli Defense Forces. It's not the JDF. It's not the Jewish Defense Forces. When the IDF attacks and defend Israel, the IDF attacks and defend all of the Israeli society. And when the Hamas and Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad attack Israel, they attack all the citizens of Israel, Arabs and Jews. And what I'm saying to you right now, it's written in blood. Numbers of people dying in blood, Arabs and Jews, from the Palestinian terrorism, from Hezbollah terrorism, from Iran terrorism. And it seems people only talk about the fact that it's Jews against Arabs, it's Israel against the Palestinians, but fail to mention that the fact that the Arabs who live in Israel are suffering from the Palestinian terrorism. Just this last year, two of our finest boys from the three different communities, Amir Khouri from the Christian community, Asil Suwaid from the Muslim community, Yazan Falah from the Druze community, all of them served Israel as police officers or border police officers. And all of them were killed by Palestinian terrorism. Did you hear anybody saying anything about the Arabs being killed by the Palestinian terrorism? Did anybody talk at the UN about our life? No. And this is the hypocrisy that I'm fighting. And this is exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing. Circle back to the time where I began my service in the IDF. As I said, I wanted to do it because it is the IDF and not the JDF, because it's defending my country and defending my society. One of my friends asked me, you know, Yosef, you're going to the army. Okay, please, are you sure? Are you sure that this is what you want to do? It was about half a year before I started my service. And I answered 100%. I'm sure that this is the path that I want to take. A month and a half before my beginning of my service, my answer changed to 1,000,000%. And my answer changed to 1,000,000% because of a terrible event that happened in Israel when a suicide bomber, a Palestinian suicide bomber, entered the Maxim restaurant in Haifa, and she blew up that restaurant, a restaurant co-owned by Arabs and Jews. From that explosion, 22 Israeli civilians were killed, Arabs and Jews. Over 50 were injured, Arabs and Jews. My parents were in that restaurant 4 days prior to the attack. So I know it's 4 days, but imagine, what if it was 4 days after they would come there? What if it was 4 days earlier? What if the terrorist would have come 4 days earlier? I would be without a parent. I would lost my parent to the Palestinian terrorism. From that point, I realized that my path and my decision to take and to serve my country and my society in the IDF, it's not 100%, it's 1,000,000%. And this is how I started my service, and a month and a half later from that event, from the 4th of October, 2003. So in the 16th of November, 2003, I started my service in the Golani Brigade, one of the best combat units in the IDF. About a year later, I actually became a commander. Now, I'm going to tell you this sentence because it's a sentence that I say to everyone around the world, and I want you for a second to go into the minds of the anti-Israelis and the minds of those who claim that Israel is an apartheid state. Because every time I say this sentence, it blows their mind, and sometimes they're too shocked, so they keep their jaws open like this. But we are shocked that this happened. And my sentence is, for all those who say that Israel is an apartheid state, I, as an Arab, was a commander over Jewish soldiers in the IDF. And I commanded them, and they had to obey my commands. And if they don't obey my commands, I, as an Arab, would send the Jewish soldier to prison. Now, I asked many friends of mine in South Africa during apartheid regime that they have there, can you actually say a sentence like this? None of them, none of the South African from the Black community said that they could say something like this. Okay? Now, I have tons of examples, which I will share with you just soon, and you will understand how far is it from the reality. I will also share with you the problems. Don't worry about that. I'm going to give you the full picture, but the full picture is what it is, and not the half picture of what the anti-Israeli organizations are trying to draw and make it as if it's the reality in Israel. So, you know, I become a commander, and every time I speak this, I say this sentence. Many of the people usually ask me, you know what, we have a question. How did the Jews accepted you in the army as an Arab? How was their approach to them? How did they give you, what was the relationship? And I said, I think I have the best answer. It's just to tell you the story of a conversation between me and one of my soldiers. It was in 2004, just about getting into an operation in Gaza. It was before, Israel left Gaza, left every inch of Gaza. We had an operation ready to go into Khan Yunis, which is the middle of Gaza. And back then, that was the center of the terrorism of Hamas in Gaza. So every time there's a huge operation, everybody gets emotional, everybody gets more open. So this is the times that people speak to people from the bottom of their hearts, soldiers to soldiers, commanders to commanders, because you never know if you're gonna come back. So even to my soldiers, that there is a distance, what we call it, between me and them. They approach me as a commander. They cannot even joke with me. But at some point during operations that we go, every time this obstacle of the distance between me and my soldiers goes out, and it left just being human beings and even a big brother. Because don't forget, I'm 20 years old, but I'm a commander over a 19 and 18 years old. There's a difference between 1 and 2 years. They're like big brothers. I'm like their big brother, but I'm actually like their father figure because I'm leading them into battle and they are behind me. So as I said, one of my soldiers came to me and said to me, listen, we already know about to get into operation in Gaza. We don't know the situation it's going to be. So I gotta get this out of my chest. And I said, okay, go ahead. What's on your mind? And he goes like, I just wanted to tell you that me and the rest of the unit here, do you know why we respect you more than any other commander, and why we would fight with you no matter what, and why we believe in you and we trust you? I said, okay, where is this coming from? And he goes like, listen to me. And back then, I was a commander over only a Jewish unit. So all my soldiers were Jews. So the soldier who started talking to me says, listen, in this unit, we're all Jews. We did not have any choice. They made us be here. They forced us to be here. You volunteered to serve in the IDF. You chose to be here. You could have been in South America right now partying or whatever it is, but you're right now here because you chose to be here. Because of those reasons, every soldier in this unit would follow you and will have your back, and we got your back, and we trust you. And for me, saying as this sentence, every time I say this, it just reminds me of how really so many amazing stories of partnership between Jews and Arabs goes, to the garbage because the media and the social media don't talk about it, and they prefer to speak about only the bad things. Imagine if we balance every bad story with a good story. Even your way of thinking about the situation, even your way of thinking about the partnership in Israel, about Arabs and Jews would be totally different. For every time someone says, let's kill Jews or death to Arabs, you would bring stories of Arabs and Jews helping each other here. And I have countless of stories. I will mention some of them. You would be shocked because you don't know those stories that exist, that will shock you, that maybe will even make you tear. But imagine if you equalize those stories together. Then you start fighting anti-Semitism. You start fighting racism at the same time. Those are the things that we try to fight as much as possible. Those are the things that we try to see how it's possible to make it even better and better for our country and our society. And these are the things that most matter for me. So jumping forward to the 2 months before my scheduled release, I participated in the Second Lebanon War. And if you remember, I told you about the fact that it's written in numbers. When I was in Lebanon, a few hours before I entered the border, one of my friends from Nazareth called me and said to me, Yosef, how does it feel to go to Lebanon and fight your Arab brothers? And I said, I'm not fighting my Arab brothers. I'm fighting the terrorist organization, Hezbollah. I said, okay. And we, agreed to disagree, let's say. Okay. So when I was in Lebanon, in that war, I lost 7 of my friends. I lost 3 of my commanders. I lost 1 of my soldiers. And then 4 days before ceasefire, I was injured very, very badly when Hezbollah spotted my unit and launched an anti-tank missile on a soldier who was walking by foot, not in a tank. My luck was that the missile did not hit me, but it hit a wall very close to me. And from the explosion, I was hurt. My foot was cut off, actually. And I had the huge shrapnel that cut my face, shrapnels all over my body. A bullet went through my left leg, sorry. When I was rushed into the hospital, the best doctors, Jews and Arabs, actually took care of me. Now, there's two stories from here. The first story is about my friend who said to me, how do you feel fighting your Arab brothers? And I said that I'm not fighting my Arab brothers, I'm fighting the terrorist organization Hezbollah. He came to visit me in the hospital. And the first sentence that he told me, it was, Yosef, now I understand. And the reason why he said, now I understand, it's because the fact that during the Second Lebanon War, I wasn't defending Jews. I was defending my country. I was defending my society. I was defending Arabs and Jews, the Israeli society. Because of my city, rockets fell down, killed babies, injured dozens from Nazareth, my city and his city. But further than that, during the Second Lebanon War, 44 Israeli civilians were killed by the terrorist organization's Hezbollah missiles. Half of the casualties were Arab Muslims. We are 20% of the population, the Israeli Arabs. But 50% of the casualties in the Second Lebanon War were Arab Muslims. When I was there, I was defending my country, my society, and my people, Jews and Arabs. And when my friend come to me and said to me, I understand, obviously you can't feel a sort of winning because you cannot win after you lose so many friends and commanders and soldiers and you get injured yourself. But there is a sort of a satisfaction when your best friend comes and tells you, okay, now I understand you. And you know, when I decided to join the army, my friends split to three groups. Some of my friends disconnected any contact with me. Some of my friends didn't care, and some of my friends supported. Those who didn't care and those who supported, and some of those who disconnected the ties with me, we later had a talk about this, and they said to me, if we had the maturity that we have today, you know, when we're 32, 33, 35 years old, 37 years old, back then when we were 18 years old, we might have taken the same decision that you took. So I always joke about it, and I say that at the age of 18, I already had the maturity of 35 years old person. Anyway, that's the jokes between me and my friends. But anyway, I was talking about the second story, which was in the hospital, and I start saying a sentence, or a definition. If you heard me saying correctly, partnership, okay? Because when it comes to describe the relationship between the Arabs and Jews here in Israel, I hate when people use the word coexistent. Coexistent is something that you can describe maybe the relationship between the Israelis and the Palestinians, the Israelis and the Jordanians and the Egyptians. But partnership is the real definition that you need to state when you use it to describe the relationship between Arabs and Jews who live in Israel. Coexistence is something like, okay, let's coexist. Fine. I don't like you, but let's coexist. Partnership is the real story that happens in Israel. Jews and Arabs don't dislike each other here. Yes, there are extremists from both sides. There are minority extremists from the Jewish society that it doesn't matter for them that I'm an Arab who serves in the army, that I fight for my country. I'm an Arab, so I'm not terrorist. And there are a minority in my community, extreme minority in my community, that it doesn't matter that I want to work for my community, that I want to advance and promote my community because I'm proud to be an Israeli, then I'm a sellout, then I'm a traitor, okay? And that the Jews are racist. But the fact is that our own existence, me and my friends in our organization, we make it very problematic for those extremists to continue their agenda because we're proving time after time that the majority of the Jewish people are not racist. And we're proving to the other side that the majority of the Arab Israelis are not terrorists. In fact, they want to be in a partnership with the Israeli society. And that's why it kills them. That's why I am under constant threat, time after time after time after time. Because this is the only way to stop me, by scaring me, by intimidating me, by threatening me. Because it's not anything else is not working because I got the facts. I got what's going on the ground. And that really literally intimidate those people. So for the exact reasons, I will never stop and I will continue fight in order to bridge the gaps between Jews and Arabs here in Israel. And I'm happy to tell you that I can see more and more from the Arab society and from the Jewish society joining our voices, changing their minds. And that's the biggest win that we have. So by saying this, I go now to the Israeli hospitals, because the real partnership you will see in the Israeli hospitals, when you see Jewish doctor treating an Arab patient, when you see an Arab doctor treating a Jewish patient, when you see Jews and Arabs families are in the same room. And again, I'm not generalizing. Obviously, there are anti-Semites and there are racists that don't want to be in the same room with an Arab family or with a Jewish family. But the absolute majority, the fact is that if you go today to any hospital in Israel, from the south to the north, you would see exactly what I'm talking about. And that's the reality that I try to, as much as possible, to bring into the social media and into the news as well, because I'm also a journalist who worked for I-24 News in Arabic and in English. And I'm also the CEO of Together Vouch for Each Other, which is an Arab-Israeli organization that I founded 5 years ago. 5 years ago, Arab-Israelis decided to say enough is enough. We need to work for Nazareth. We need to work for Haifa. We need to work for Lud, Beersheba. We need to work for Rahat. All those things that happening inside Israel for us, the Israeli Arab people, not Jenin, Ramallah, and Gaza. How can we solve problems outside of Israel when we have problems here? Right now, our current leaders from the Arab society are focusing on the Palestinian issue more than focusing on us. While in every survey, if you ask any Arab Israelis, what is the most important issue? The Palestinian-Israeli conflict comes last with barely 2 to 4%. Now, the question that will pop up is, so why we keep voting for the same people? Why we keep voting for the same people from the Arab community leaders that does not do anything for the Israeli society, for the Arab Israeli society? Unfortunately, it's a simple answer. First of all, responsibility. I'll take responsibility as a citizen and as someone who is part of the Arab Israeli society and say that we failed of bringing in a different alternative, but we are working on it. And the second thing, the Arab Israeli leaders today, they are actually deliberately doing everything not to work to bridge gaps between Jews and Arabs. They're deliberately doing absolutely everything to keep that gap going wider and wider and to divide us and to promote nationalism, Palestinian nationalism. Because all this is what's keeping our society weak. And the weaker the society is, the more you can control it. The more you can control it, this way, without an alternative, you can get elected time after time only by selling illusions and frightening the people that if you don't vote for us, nobody will work for you. Well, guess what? Nobody is working for us anyway. But then they would say, well, at least we will be your voice. But you're not our voice. But still, with lack of alternative, this is what happens. So time after time, we elect the same people because of that reason. And the stamp for that, the evidence for that is every time, even right now, guys, even right now, I came from the committee that we spoke about the education in East Jerusalem. MK Ahmed Tibi was there. The minute I started speaking, he got up and he walked and he did not even stay and listen. Why? Because he's scared to hear the truth. He doesn't want to give a legitimation to my voice as well, because if he starts doing this, then more people will talk about it from my society. What he doesn't understand is without him, more and more people are talking about what we're doing. And I got 2 stories before I open questions, and then I have to go for the next committee here. The first story is speaking about the partnership here in Israel and how we change people's mind. A few years ago, I arrived to a pre-military school. When I entered the school, one of the students with a yarmulke on his head came to me and says to me, you know, I knew that you're coming to talk to us. So I Googled your name and I found out that you're an Arab. And I want to tell you that for me, all the Arabs are terrorists. And then he added the sentence, a good Arab is a dead Arab. Now, I could be very, very mad and I could be frustrated and maybe even curse back, whatever it is. Instead of that, I did one thing. And I asked him, how many Arab friends do you have? His answer was 0. I said to him, okay, listen to my lecture. After the lecture where I presented stories and a lot of data and all that, he came to me and he said to me, listen, 99.9% of the things that you said, I did not even know. And I owe you an apology. Now put this kid aside, I'm not done with him. I went to speak in a high school in Nazareth. Once I entered the class, 2 students approached me. One of them said to me in Arabic, Yusuf, inti akbar khain, which means you are the biggest traitor. I actually asked him the same question because he said to me, Jews don't like us and they are racist. So I said to him, how many Jewish friends do you have? He said 0. He said, listen to my lecture. At the end of that lecture, I approached him and I told him, you know, I have this organization that works to bridge gaps between Jews and Arabs, and we have projects together. Come, see, participate. You don't like it, get out and even bash me. The bottom line of those two stories, the kid that called me a terrorist and the kid that called me a traitor, today, both of them volunteers in my organization and both of them are very good friends. But further than that, I saw it in my own eyes in our events. I saw that one kid goes to the other and says, come, I want you to meet my friend. So now he doesn't have only one friend, but the circle of the friends are getting bigger and bigger. That's how you change it. So this is the story about the partnership that I'm talking about. And by the way, if I may add one more story about the partnership, I'll talk to you, for instance, about Maher Ibrahim. Maher Ibrahim is a nurse in the Emek hospital in Afula in the north of Israel. During the pandemic, the corona pandemic, there was a Jewish, elderly, Orthodox Jewish religious guy who was about to die. So the hospital calls the family. The family lived in Jerusalem. The only family he had lived in Jerusalem. And back at that time, there was actually a snow in Jerusalem. So they could not come and get out of the city. The hospital realized that no one would come to say goodbye from that elderly guy, Maher Ibrahim. And again, I will state and mention that this person was a Jewish Orthodox, so was a Haredi. So Maher Ibrahim, who studied Judaism at Bar Ilan University, and he's again an Arab Muslim nurse, he knew how much it's important for someone who is a Jewish Orthodox to hear Shema Yisrael for the last time before he passes to the next world. So the Muslim nurse took the Sefer Tehillim, the holy book, sat down next to the Jewish Orthodox guy who was about to die, and literally said Shema Yisrael. And a few minutes later, that person died. But he did not die before he heard Shema Yisrael. And the ironic and the most amazing thing is that it came from the mouth of a Muslim Arab in Israel. He became a hero. He became a hero in Israel. Why you don't hear about those stories? Why you don't hear about this in the news? Why do you hear only about kill the Jews and death to Arabs? Why don't you hear about stories like Michael ben Zikri? Michael ben Zikri, a Jew who swam into the lake to save 3 Arab kids, and he managed to save them, but he died because his strength were out. He was out of power anymore, so he drowned and he died. But he died while saving 3 Arab kids from the Bedouin town in the south. And you don't hear of the fact that the village named the main street on his name. So you have a name of a main street on a Jewish person in a Bedouin village. And by the way, the main street leads to the school, the high school, El Amal. El Amal means the hope. So they did it this way. So Michael ben Zikri leads to the hope of this village and hope of this partnership. Why you don't hear those stories? Why these stories don't open headlines like other stories that shows how Jews and Arabs don't like each other? That's what I'm fighting for. That's what I want to bring to the front of the media and the social media. And the last story is about the what we call it Hezbollah, talking about Israel, because this is what we do in our organization. We go as Arab Israelis, Muslims, Christians, Jews, Bedouin, and we speak about Israel. We say the truth. We back it up with facts, and when there is a legitimate criticism towards our country, we're not afraid of it. We're not afraid of it because Israel is not perfect like any other country. But if you are criticizing Israel and the criticism is not legit, then you're going to get attacked. Not physically, by the way, but you're going to get attacked. And we're going to prove to you that you are lying, and we're going to show it to everybody else. That's what we do. And there are a lot of advantages because of that. And one of the advantages that I saw is actually at Harvard University when I came there to speak. And I was the 4th speaker and the last speaker at that day. And when I arrived to the event, I asked the event organizer and the anchor not to mention who I am when I go up on the stage. Just say that the next speaker is from Israel. And I had a plan in my mind. And I spoke at Harvard University in front of the professors and students of the political science department. So I go up on the stage and I start talking after the event organizer did what I asked. And he said, our next speaker is from Israel. That's it. That's what he said. So I speak and I speak and I speak. And I was waiting for something to happen. And 25 minutes later, what I wanted to happen exactly happened. When a student stood up and said, hi, I have to say something. And I want to say that I am disappointed and not surprised from this talk, from what I've been hearing in the last half an hour. I said, why? And he says, I'm disappointed and not surprised because they expect any Jew like you to speak about Israel like this. When I heard this sentence, I used my most Arabic accent to say that my name is Yoseph Haddad and I'm an Arab Israeli. Now, at that moment, when I said that, You could have dropped a feather on the ground and listened the feather slaps on the ground, smash on the ground because everybody was in shock. 3 seconds later, you couldn't even realize and talk like this because the commotion was so hard, nobody understood what we were saying. This is the situation. That's what happened. They were totally shocked. And by that, proves again that you have a narrow thinking about Israel, thinking that, okay, it's a Jewish democratic state, but it's Jewish state, and not talking about the fact that there are 20% of the population in Israel are succeeding. And here are the numbers, okay? We are 20% of the population, but we are 30% of the doctors in Israel. We are 50% of the pharmacists. Yes, you're hearing right. The Arabs in Israel are 20%. Yet we are 30% of the doctors. We're 50% of the pharmacists. During the apartheid in South Africa, justice system is separated between black and white. Here in Israel, you have an Arab judge who sent to prison a Jewish prime minister and a Jewish president. Salim Jubran. He sent Ohad Olmert and Moshe Katsav, one for sexual harassment and the other one for embezzling money. You have top doctors leading top hospitals. The same hospital that I was treated in, Hospital Nahariya, is run by an Arab Israeli by the name Mis'ad Barhoum. You have the largest bank in Israel. I know that the stigma to say that the Jews control the money. How ironic that the largest bank in Israel is run by an Arab Muslim from Taibeh, Professor Samir Haj Yahya. You have the sports team. Just recently, Israel won the 3rd place in the World Cup for under 20 in football. The leading goal scorer is an Arab Muslim from Haifa, Anan Khalaili. So we have many stories of partnership that debunk the myth of the apartheid. But obviously, people are saying, well, we're not referring to the Arab Israelis. That's a lie, because Amnesty International, B'Tselem and Amnesty International stated in their last report that Israel is committing an apartheid crime from the river to the sea, including the Arab Israelis. So also Amnesty International, also B'Tselem, also other human rights organizations stating that I, as an Arab, live under apartheid regime. Completely and absolutely a lie. And in Gaza, it's the same thing. Israel does not control Gaza. And yes, we do control the borders, the sea and the air, because we know the minute we don't do that, Iran is going to bring their ships into Gaza, and then you will have accurate missiles that will be launched at Israeli civilians, Arabs and Jews, by the way. And by the way, Gaza is not the largest prison. Gaza has another border with Egypt, which Egypt closed because of terrorism, of the Islamic terrorism. Now, why nobody's talking about it? Why is everybody talking about Israel closing the border and not Egypt? You know why? Because it's easy. It's Arabs on Arabs. That's fine. But when it's the Jewish state on Arabs, well, that's different. That's apartheid. No, that's hypocrisy. There's no other definition for it. And I will fight this hypocrisy. And as I said in the West Bank, the situation is complicated, but it's everything right now. All the status quo that you see today is agreed upon the Oslo Accords. Territory A, B, and C. The Palestinian Authority, where Israel control, is agreed upon Oslo Accords. And right now, until this date, until we were talking right now, none of the parties decided to withdraw from that agreement. Therefore, if you don't learn, and if you don't educate yourself, and if you don't realize what's going on, you will keep promoting this lie and the myth of the apartheid, okay? And last thing I would like to say is about the fact that many people are so blindly going with this apartheid myth and with the conflict between the Israelis and Palestinians, they're forgetting one thing. Within the Palestinians themselves, there's much more hatred between themselves to the Israel. Fatah and Hamas, the Palestinian Authority and Hamas, hate each other more than they hate Israel. You have even further than that. You have groups, neighborhoods, cities within the Palestinian territories hate each other more than even they can imagine of hating any Israeli. But people do not talk about the human rights abuse of the Palestinian Authority. People do not talk about the human rights abuse of the terrorist organization Hamas. 2 days ago, Israel got out after finishing the operation in Jenin. And what happened? Everybody's talking about it, but then the Palestinian officers went inside, brutalizing Palestinians, but nobody's talking about it. Videos that I shared, brutalizing because they're protesting. No, they don't want them to protest, so they're beating them. But someone is speaking about it. Someone is talking about those human rights issues by the Palestinians. Someone is speaking about Nizar Banat, a journalist who was killed because he criticized the Palestinian Authority. No. And why? Hypocrisy. hypocrisy again and again and again. All right, guys, I have literally only 3 minutes left for before I go to my next meeting. So I actually have only one more question one more or two more questions, if there is. In any case, I really hope to manage to give you a little bit of my knowledge and my experience and about me and my work here. And inshallah, I will see you maybe in person. And thank you for listening to me.
Yoseph, that was incredible. There are several people who would like to ask questions, but in respect to your time frame and your limits, I'm going to ask.
I really apologize because I do need to jump to another committee right now, very important one. And but I would like to say, for those questions that I am not going to answer now, please send it to me, and I will refer to them after that by responding here.
Fantastic. So I'm going to ask Shane Shmuel. You were the person who put up your hand first. So Shane, if you want to ask a question, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Yosef. And I follow you on Facebook, and I think you're absolutely awesome with what you do. But how do we change the perception of those out there with regards to listening to the BDS and those governments that listen to it and keep pumping money into the pay for slay program?
Yeah. So first of all, I do apologize. I have only I can only answer this question. They've been calling me to go to the committee as soon as possible because it's my turn to speak. I would say like this. Right now, the BDS organizations are not actually the target. The target is the 50-50. Those who are on the line. For instance, every lecture I come, my group, my audience is divided to 3 people. You have the anti-Israelis, you have the pro-Israelis, and you have the 50-50. They are the most important one because the anti-Israelis are biased, and it doesn't matter what I say. You cannot really convince them within 45 minutes. The pro-Israelis, they're biased towards me. So what I try to do with them is actually give them tools and knowledge and give them energy to continue to fight the right fight. For those anti-Israelis, I try to shook them a little bit, make them go out of their comfort zone. And I know when I win this debate, because either of 3 things happening. Either they start cursing me, or they start shouting at me, or they start shouting and cursing at the same time at me. At that time, I know that I won this debate. But the biggest group and the most important group is those on the 50-50 who come to listen to my lecture without any other opinion before that. And they say, okay, I'm going to come here, listen to this guy. And if he brings the truth and the facts to that, then I'm going to actually be leaning towards that side. That's why I'm focusing on. And I'm happy to tell you that when I focus on those groups, many times I finished my lecture when saying finally someone comes and brings facts, videos, pictures, names, statistics, numbers, all that in one lecture. And when you strengthen that group, the 50-50 group, that's how we can actually start winning over the BDS in any terms. Now, this is a small answer because I really have to go, but I will elaborate on that more because there are programs. But I can tell you one of the biggest win is supporting voices like our voices in our organization. We're Arab Israelis. We're the one who are on the ground. We know what's going on. And when you bring, for instance, and that's what we did one time in the United States, inshallah, maybe we'll do it in Australia as well. But when you bring into the panel a Christian Arab, a Muslim Arab, a Druze Arab, a Bedouin Arab, sitting down, talking about the Israeli apartheid, men and women, in front of anti-Israeli audience and in front of a 50-50 audience, who do you think they're going to listen to? The anti-Israelis who've never been in Israel, and they never even saw anything, or the Arab Israelis who actually live in that reality. That's how you do it. So I'm obviously happy to cooperate with everyone in the future. And by the way, we're talking about March of the Living. I would tell you that we've done some amazing thing in March of the Living. We were the largest group to go there 2 years ago, and we had a ceremony in Auschwitz in Arabic, which was broadcasted to the Arab world. We've done so many things to bridge gaps, and we also, of course, fight racism, fight anti-Semitism. This is the way actually to shift things towards us, towards Israel, and show the reality and the truth. Guys, I hope I answered a little bit. There's more details onto how to combat the BDS organizations that I'm working on. In any case, I would love to chat more. Maybe we'll do another talk like this. It was absolutely a pleasure meeting you guys. Sorry for being so rushed like this, but it was very important for me to do that. Thank you all for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Yosef, and good luck and continue your wonderful work. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, clearly that discussion could have gone on for ages. I do apologize that there wasn't more time for further questions. I have had questions come up on the chat If anyone wants to submit anything to Yosef, please send it to us. He is very, very circumspect about communication in an open forum. So if you send it to me, I will certainly commit to getting those messages across to him, and hopefully he will respond. So thank you very much for attending, and have a good evening. Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.